I'm going to work on the hair next. I need to do a little bit of shadowy areas on the other sides of the hair, so I am going to take Yellow Deep, and I'll probably add a little bit of burnt umber in there too. So between the hair and the hood, this is actually the underside of the hood, I just want to sneak some color in there, and yeah, I do want to add a little burnt sienna in there. Just kind of brush mix the two together. That's better. And same with on each side of her neck. So Yellow Deep and burnt sienna mixed together. It's probably equal parts. Just kind of tuck that in on each side of her neck. And let's go up the side of the face just a little bit, because not all the hair comes and touches the face. So Yellow Deep and burnt sienna. Nice deep golden color. And I'm just using the round brush on my Dirty Dancer. And these are kind of transparent, but get as good a coverage as you can. So I'm putting it on a little bit thick. Okay, and then there's also an area on the other side of her hair on the left, but I'm going to actually leave that black because that'll be a darker shadowy area. That'll work. Okay, then I'm going to use the rake brush to get it started. And Moonbeam Yellow, or Moon Yellow in the Americana is what I'm going to use. So I'm going to, there again, thin it when you use your rake brush, thin it with water. So thin the Moon Yellow with water, and I'm going to use that to just kind of get the hair started. A little more mixture here. And I've got the 1/4 inch rake, or you could use the 1/8, either way. And to start with, I'm just kind of getting all of the hair, and then I'll concentrate on shadows and highlights. But I want to establish the direction. Get the bangs. I'm going to try and not do quite such a tight curl to begin with. That'll be the other areas afterwards. And every time I do hair, it comes out just a little bit different. That's all right. Okay, you're not seeing a lot of individual hairs at this stage. This is more of the base coat stage. I want it a little thicker up by the hood, and I do need to come down into the forehead just a little bit. Thin the water, just keep adding more to the brush. I don't want a lot of black showing. Okay, and where I get her bangs, I do want to camouflage where the skin stopped. So make sure you get that coated good enough that you don't see a dividing line there anymore from the black still underneath. Don't worry if you go up into the fur just a little bit, because we're going to bring that fur down on top of her hair after. Okay, just a kind of a gentle little curl at the bottom. Okay, now I want to start getting some shadows and highlights going into the hair. Typically, I can start either way. I can either start with the shadows first, or I can start with the highlights first. I'm going to go ahead and start with the highlight areas first. And I'm going to use white, titanium white. And I'm switching to my smaller rake brush. And I'm thinning that with water. Okay, now I want to try to decide what areas I want to pop forward. So anytime I have a curved area, it's usually the center of that curve that I want to get my highlights. So I'm not going to go all the way from the top to bottom this time. I'm going to stick mostly into the center. So down here, I'll get my white. Same on the other side. Find that curve and get it in the center of the curved area. Now if your hair's really wet, you might want to blow dry it a little bit. Here's another curve, so I want to do in the center. I'm not connecting it to the white. I want to leave some separation there. And in the bangs, about from the middle down, and I'll get some like flyaways next to the face afterwards too. Okay, that's about all I'm going to do right now for the white. Then I'm going to go to Yellow Deep, and I'll use that for my shadow color, and thin that with water. Still use the rake. And I'm using the smaller rake again. Okay, I'm going to get the tips, so the bottom tips. A little more water. Catching the bottom edge of the hair. Just real delicate strokes. I could pull either direction, either from the bottom up or the top side down. Okay, now between where I highlighted, I also want to get some of these shadow colors. And I want to get some coming from the top under her hood. And try to pull them all different lengths so that they don't all stop exactly at the same spot. If I get too carried away, I can always go back with some of my original color. Get a little bit more off to the outside edge here, and then in between where I didn't have any highlight, okay. I think a little bit, let's get just a little bit on the side here too. Okay, so that's my basic. I do want to get some on the tips of the bangs, but I'm going to actually use my liner brush now to finish the finer details. So if I take the yellow deep on my liner and I can define the tips of the bangs and kind of get them going the direction that I want. They don't have to be lined up nice and neat. So I'm just doing at the bottom, and I can come back and put more white in after too. And I'm going to get a little bit darker. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber into that yellow deep, about half and half. And I'm just using water in my paint now. Get the tips to show up just a little more. And I also want to get a little darker coming from under the hood so that burnt umber and yellow deep mix together. And I know you've got to do a lot of strokes, but with the liner brush I can get them to all stop at different lengths. So I like to do the final details with the liner, but the rake really gets the majority of it done quickly for me. And the bottom tips of the hair, and actually the bottom tips of the hair I'm not going to even worry about at this stage because I still want to do the fur collar. So let me just concentrate on all the upper areas of the hair. It's getting some different lines going in. And I'll come back and get some more lines with the white. And if I get carried away with those two colors, I can also come back and get some more of the yellow ones in as well. And just thin the titanium white with some water. And I'll strengthen some of those center areas. And then I'll also add some little flyaways closer to the face. And I can do them with both white or shadow color. It just depends on what you're up against. But the biggest trick is just getting different lengths of hair so that it doesn't look like it's just all lined up where you've done your highlights or your shadows. You want some extra long and some shorter. More up in the middle of the bangs. I'll try and stay more just in the center area this time. Get it so that it kind of blends over into the side. Just really skinny. Yeah, you've got to have, color in there, so try not to water it down too much so that you lose all the nice pigment. And depending on how heavy-handed I get with which color will really set the tone or the color of the hair. If I get heavy-handed with the shadow, then, she'll have a little darker hair. Don't be afraid to just slightly overlap onto the skin a little bit. That helps to frame her face a little better. And just bump up those highlights. And that gives her a nice bright shine. All different lengths. Now, the more space you leave between your strokes, the more coarse her hair would look. So depending if you want it to look a little more windblown, you could leave a little more space. If you want it to look nice and neat, like she's just combed it, then the brush strokes have to be a little closer together. Okay, and then I'll just add a few flyaways with the yellow deep also. And I always like to wait till everything's totally done on the piece before I decide if I need just a couple more final touches anywhere. Otherwise, her hair is pretty much done. And then just look at it one more time after all the clothing is done and everything too, because it's sometimes you decide it needs to be a little lighter, a little darker, depending on what it's up against. So I think I'll just leave that as is for now. I do want to go back and get the shadow color on the arms, and I'm going to use Shading Flesh just straight, but I'm going to mix Extender into it, and I'm going to put it on the wrist right where it goes into the muff, and then maybe a little across the bottom as well. I'm not doing a whole lot to the arms here, and then soften it. Soften that hard line away. Same on the other side, right next to the muff, and a little on the bottom, and soften that hard line. And I'll just leave that for now. I'll decide after if I need to deepen it or not once I get more of the fur done. Okay, so for the fur that is up around her head, I started out with the medium white. So now I'm going to do white and then yellow deep. So let's start with the white. And that's going to mostly be on the front edge. I'm going to use my 1/4 inch rake. Okay, and I want that front half, and I kind of give it a little bit of a flip as I come off the edge so that I get real feathery tips coming out. And if I wanted to wiggle it, I could. I mean, everybody has kind of like a little bit different touch to their signature. You're going to have a little bit different look for your fur too. I want to camouflage where the top of her head is so that I don't really see where that hair starts and stops. If you need to, you can always add some little touches with a liner brush. But I want to try to do the majority of it with the rake. Just goes faster. So on the left side, see, I can still see a little bit of black showing. A little bit more of a shadow there. Okay, so I've got the white. Then from the very top edge, I'm going to do, actually I think Let's see, should I do a little, I might even do a little bit of the moon yellow first. Let's do a little of the moon yellow and then I'll do the yellow deep. Thin it with water. So from that back edge, pull a little bit of the moon yellow. Just kind of warms it up a little bit. Okay, then I'll do the yellow deep next. So thin the yellow deep, half paint, half water. Really mix that up with your rake. And that back edge. And I'm not coming all the way to the front, keeping it like at the back third. So if you didn't get enough of your first color of the medium white in there, if there's still too much black showing through, you'll have to put some medium white back in the center. Really get that from the back edge. So, and I just might put a little of that medium white in there anyway. So I'm going to take a little of the medium white and put that through the middle areas. Just a few. Not coming all the way to the front edge. Just more in the middle there, just kind of softens it a little bit. Okay. Just a few more of the yellow deep. Okay, so now this time I want to pull some in a little bit longer so that I really break it up so that it doesn't look quite so outlined. A few little stray ones here and there that come in further. First time around I mainly concentrated on the whole back edge. Now I just want to get a few long ones to help break it up. And if you need to do that with the white, you can go back and do some with the white, or even use your liner brush and get a few more defined right where, especially where the hair touches. A few little irregular tips. And then let that dry and see if you need any more in there. If you do decide you need any more darkness on the hood, put a little bit of the burnt sienna into the yellow deep. Okay, Basically the same colors are kind of going on in the collar, but we'll introduce one more color into that as well. Okay, so let's start with the rolled collar edge up on top, and I'm going to start with the white up there and curl it from the top edge down. So it's a little thicker up on top. Okay, and then from the bottom up, I'm just going to go right for the yellow deep. And then I'm going to come back with some medium white in the center. Okay, so yellow deep on the bottom, and then medium white in the center. Okay, and I won't decide on any real dark darks until after I get everything in there. Okay, then kind of the same thing for same colors in the rest of the cape. I'm going to do the white, and I'm going to switch back to my 1/4 inch. There again, I could start with, in fact, let me just show you, I could start with the yellow deep if I wanted to. And I could pull that from the top. It's just whichever makes more sense to you. You end up with the same result. Okay, and then I'm going to do the rolled edge. Yellow deep also. So I'm doing the top of the rolled edge. A little bit more in that top area. Okay, then I want, I do want to put some of my darker in there now. I'm going to go for the, let's start with the burnt sienna. And I think I might add some, no, I'm going to add a little touch of burnt umber into the burnt sienna, just because it's a little too red for what I want to go for. So so if I take a little burnt sienna, a little burnt umber, mix those two together and get something in between. That's going to be my other shadow color. Okay, and I'll pull that from the top edge, and where it connects, kind of connecting the two, the top and the roll. And let's get a little above the muff. Okay, then we're going to go to the titanium white. Thin that with water. And I want to get in the center areas. Try long, soft strokes. And this is just our first layer, so it's okay if it picks up a little bit of wet paint from the other colors. So we'll let it dry before we do our brighter white. So all through the center. And from the around the bottom edge. It's the final touches that help refine it. It looks kind of messy, you know, as you're working, and just bear with it.